Hello, this is Mike, K3DO, and I'd like to welcome you back to the second episode of the last Hamshack. In this episode, we'll start out with wiring up the remote heads and move on through building the RF cable patch panel and making the RF snake look nice and neat. We'll also get our first look at what the completed shack will look like. In this video, we're still building it out, but you get a really good overview of what's going to be in the shack this time. If you find these videos interesting or useful, please click the follow button and the little bell symbol right next to it. Actually, it's on this side. And if you give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, we really appreciate that. That really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, looking forward to the comments in the video below. So let's get right to the episode. Alright, so I'm getting into wiring some of the panels now. This is my panel that has all the remote heads, well, not all of them, 5 of the remote heads. There's still a couple, there's 2 more out there. But so I'm wiring this up, and one of the things I promised myself I was going to redo my shack is not to make the mess that I did in the old shack. So the old shack started out with like one little 10-watt radio, and then a 50-watt radio, and then another 50-watt radio, and then an HF radio, and then a new HF radio. So everything over time, and then I moved from one place to the other. It just became a mess. I mean, there was no organization at all. I mean, it built up over quite a few years just to be in a mess. In fact, when I'm going to show you these cables, I'm going to show you, it took me over an hour to get them out of the rat's nest without harming them yesterday. So I'm going to turn it over here. I'm going to show you how I'm doing the wiring. So one of the things I've done, I've mentioned this before, every cable is labeled as to what it is on both ends. And then for this, for the control cables, I'll put them into a mesh, like a little snake mesh, so all those control cables go together, so I can just trace them down to the end. Actually, these are the mic cables. Now look at it. I have mic and control cables separated. I'm kind of get it to focus here, and then this is the control cable. So rather than having, what is this, 9 separate cables in a rat's nest, they're all nice and neat. I know what's in this is control cables. We're looking at the labels on either end, and I can tell this is the microphone cables. So this is what I'm doing in the back of the back, so it's all wired up nice and neat. And if you hold it up, you see basically 2, well, other than microphones hanging out there, 2 cables, and that's how it's going to go run down to the rack at the bottom. So nice and clean run. Don't have to worry about what's in it. Nothing gets tangled. Nice way, clean way. And I promised myself to keep it this way. So hopefully that is the case. All right, so here is the next panel I've been working on. You see in the background the mess I'm still working with. So you can get the glare off. So this panel is going to be my hotspot panel. So I have 3 4.3-inch Nextion displays. It's hard to find a file for these things, so I have found one and modified it. I'm still working on the modification, but for now it works just fine. So I had 2 hotspots already. They were sitting on my desk, or just sitting around with little Pi 0Ws, and actually one of them was a full Pi and one of them was a Pi 0W, and they were just sitting on top of the desk. So I kind of wanted to make that into something that was more mountable with bigger displays. So this is what I've done. So you see the Nextion displays, and if I turn this around, you see on the back I 3D printed some mounts for the Raspberry Pis that have the same screw sets as the Nextion. I put a hole in for the plug, and you see I've mounted them. You notice I have 2 single transceiver, and then I have a dual. This is my first dual, so I just wanted to experiment with it a little bit. And you see it comes with an OLED display that will never get used, so it's just going to be back there for nothing. It's hard. I didn't want to cut it off. Could probably break getting it off. So if I ever want to use it for something else, I decided to just leave it on there. But I wanted to experiment with a dual transceiver. So we're going to try it out and see what it's like. And I just noticed the antennas are different lengths. I think I probably got them backwards, mixed up. But anyways, I'm probably not going to do this anyways. These are going to be in a rack. It's a wood rack, but still, I think what I'm going to do is 3D print an external antenna holder and put it on the back so that the antennas aren't inside the rack. But for now, just here for safety reasons. These are already loaded up. This first one here is going to have DMR on it, and the dual band, the dual. That's kind of what I want to play with. Let's see what the options are with that. And then the second one is Fusion, and the third one over here is going to be D-Star. So in addition to D-Star, it's going to also have NXDN and P25 on it, and then this Yaesu one actually has a POC turned on. So I'm experimenting with POC a little bit. But you see what I've done is I've cabled it all up. I have put this in so it didn't get caught and left some space for strain relief in there. And then I tied the USB cable with space in there too to each of the network cables. And then what I've been doing everywhere is I made it into a nice single cable at the other end, comes out, and right next to the switch is where the power is going to come from for these. So this is a nice clean install, and it's going to go into the rack. So we'll show you after I get in the rack later on the whole setup running, but this is what I've done for my hotspots. So these are going to be my hotspots now. Alright, so we're going to do one more thing here on the example of wiring. You've seen the picture of all the wires coming through my wall. So what I'm going to do in this rebuild is I'm going to run basically two snakes of cables. Top row 1 through 14, you see they're all labeled. Cable number 5 goes number 5. It doesn't have to be that way, it's going to start out that way. It's going to start out somewhat organized. So I'll be able to know what each cable goes to on the other end. And 1 through 14 are going to the left side of the shack, which is where the rack is that has all of the remote head radios. It also has like the node radio and a couple other things in there. And then there's also 3 testing ports that are there. All that combined, I think I'm going to have 3 open heading over to that side of the shack. The other side of the shack has a same rack, but it has other things in it. And you can see I'm only running over, would that be 8 of 8 to that side of the shack. And I think I'm going to have 2 or 3 extra in this one. This side, that side has like the Leopack cable, the 2 HF wires that come from the outside switches are there, and things like that. They're on that side of the shack. So so I'll have like, I think it's 2 or 3 extra. I think I can't remember exactly. So these are bulkhead connectors. So on the back side, you see there's the same thing. So there is, these are not lettered or numbered I1 through 22, and the outside ones are also numbered. They're numbered O1 through 22. As we start out, they should be 1 to 1, but there's nothing saying that has to stay that way. So this gives me the flexibility to make changes later on. The current configuration that I've been running has been running for a while, so this may be okay. But you can see this. I coiled this all up. By the way, this is Molly. She's over here wanting to play. And this is the bigger one, obviously, and then there's that one, and you can see they go out there. So they're different lengths. You can't really tell from this camera probably where the snake stops, but the small one doesn't go quite as far and it breaks apart. And then I'll probably wrap it up because 2 of these actually, from this small side, one goes to a scanner and one goes to a DMR radio that's actually in the rack. So they'll continue on. 2 of these will continue on to that as well. So, but this is my hopefully organization method for keeping the cables all organized. Alright, let's give you another update as to where things are. You can see I still got some cables laying around, still a little bit of cleanup going on here and there. I got some rack rails installed in the back of this rack. That's where the digital soundboard is. And there's also a data switch. I can probably kind of see it sticking all the cables up over there. That gets mounted back there as well. So those 2 rails get mounted in the back. This rack is otherwise pretty close. You'll see at the top there the 4 Raspberry Pis that are sending audio to Broadcastify, the 2 radios on the right that are taking audio and sending it to those Raspberry Pis. And then you'll see down at the bottom HRI 200 connects to the node at the very bottom down there. I don't know if you hear the clicking noise or not, but somebody's talking. And then there's an audio cable runs from there up to another Raspberry Pi. So this is all kind of automated stuff over here. The bottom right there is a Yaesu 2600 that does my APRS, which is not hooked up yet. The Raspberry Pi is sitting down there somewhere, and I haven't gotten around to hooking it back up. No hurry for that. It's a low priority item. And you see the cables are still a bit of a mess, but you can see back in the corner there, they're starting to come together. Maybe it was a little bit naive thinking how clean I could get it. But a lot of these cables that are back there are going to be cleaned up. They're just not, there's still a couple things going on in the back with moving the soundboard and the network switch. So when that's all done, I'll do the final cleanup. And then you'll see this hopefully considerably cleaner than what it was. And up top we have the stuff in the top right rack up here. What you have is the 3 hotspots, and then you have you see obviously the one moving, but that's the node. So I have a meter set up for a node. I have 2 different HF runs, and the APRS is on the right, which is not working right now. Then the 2 rotor controllers right here, and then the computer interface for this rotor controller, which I got to get hooked back up. I got a new cable for that, so I can get that hooked back up. And then over here we're pretty much done. This side's working fine. Everything in here is wired up. This is a remote to a remote rig. That's currently hooked up on the other side, so I can't turn that on. But all these other radios down here are all powered up and working, so all good to go with that. And then here you have the center, which is my DMR, the scanner, and then another HF rig. And then you have all the big panel over here with all the radios on it. This is the node right here, so it's always in Wires X mode. HR400, and 8900, 7900, and then the other FTM100. It's my spare, but I do use it for other things as well. And then down at the bottom, you can't really tell, but there's still a hole here. And I got 2 other radios going down there. I don't have that panel yet, so it's still working on it. And all these are mag mount mics, so if you look, there's a magnet on both sides, and just goes back on like that. So kind of neat. This side's, I believe, all done, with the exception of a couple of these switches. Mostly they're all done. And you see the solar charge controller right here. We have clouds today, lots of clouds, so there's hardly any charging going on. The backup battery charger, it's not been needed yet today, but you can see the battery's not quite where it should be if the sun was out. And then we have our 4 power poles with 12 volts. This is just a charge only USB, so it's a high rate charge, to 3 amps per side. And we also have over here a 12 volts and another USB. This is a more powerful USB, so that's why I stuck it in the panel. These are 3 connected to the switch over there that are Cat 5s. I can get the cover off. See, they're Cat 5s, and they're actually Ethercon connectors, so you can use Ethercon if you wanted to. So that connects to the switch. These 3 go to the 3 mag mounts on side. This particular one goes through a SWR meter, so I want to test something out. Check what the power output is. I can plug it in real quick and just get the power output. These USBs go to the computer, so I can plug right in the front. Here's the card reader, since so many things use the cards now. 110 volts, and this is the battery monitor right here. So you can see where we are. Right now we're drawing out 2.3 amps. It's because we're not charging enough to charge out. So it's getting there. Got the computers up here. I got quite a bit more to go, but it's functional now. And then this rack down at the bottom was the old rack. I took one of the shelves out and moved it over to the other rack, which had the node and the 2600 on it. It's over in the other rack. So it's getting there slowly. I got a bunch more stuff to do, but it's all little stuff now. The radios are all functioning, and I think it's getting ready to turn into good shape. I'm not rushing anymore, because before I was rushing to get everything back up because I didn't want things not working at all. A couple things I haven't tested yet is the digital modes, but I do see them. I haven't transmitted on them, I should say. I've tested them at the computers getting the digital modes, with the exception of packet. The packet stuff hasn't been tested at all yet, so that's something I have to do. The fact that they're not even hooked up at this point, but that's minor. I can get away without packet for a little while if I have to, and if I'm in a pinch, I can use one of the handhelds or something and connect up to one of these things over here. So not much of a rush for that. But I just wanted to give you a quick update. It's been a couple of days since I've done an update, and you can see it's come along, and you can see I put the patch panel up there. I still got to mount to the wall. I did mount to the wall once, and the little mounting screws that they sent with it did not work well. They kind of pulled out because they're not used to holding all that weight. But you can see the big black things come down. Those are the snakes. And I have a few more color cables that come in through there too. So I have about 6 Cat 5 cables that go to the tower to run different things on the tower, and one of them goes out to a link. I think it goes across to our shed as well. That's how I get cameras out there and everything. So I got a couple things that are there to clean up. I need to remount that with heavier mounts, which I do have now. So that'll be cleaning up here hopefully soon. So yep, it's starting to come along. This is a bunch of little things, and when I get it all complete, I think this will probably be the last update I do until I get everything complete, and then I'll do another update. Alright, so I do want to give you something else here. Just print this out. Over in this rack, it's over here. You see that there's 3 hotspots up there, and right now the antennas are inside there, and they're wrapped around things in metal. You see the front panel is aluminum, and beneath it there's a shelf that's really big, holding those 2 rotator controls there, and then above it there's more metal boxes that have meters in it, so metal everywhere. And inside there's also a couple other power things and stuff like that. So what I want to do is get those little antennas to the outside and get rid of the little antennas and use a better antenna. So I 3D printed this little antenna holder. It's going to mount up under the back lip of that cabinet, and it's going to stick up just like this. So you may be wondering why there's 4. I think I mentioned this in the past, but 2 of the hotspots are just regular half duplex hotspots. It's like typical things, you know, the zoom spots. The other one is a full duplex, and that's what these 2 antennas for. So that's my DMR, and I'm going to try some other things. Apparently you can run more than one talk group at a time if you want to also, so I'm going to experiment with that kind of thing. So that's why there's 2 for this one. But that's what it is. Basically it's a little extender for the hotspots, and it's going to go on the back of that rack right there. Alright, so I'm in the rack tonight, and when I was outside hooking up the Leo pack, and I got one of the connectors done outside on the rotor control itself. But while I'm inside tonight, now it's dark outside, it is getting darker earlier, unfortunately. I'm hooking up the wires in the back for the rotor control. So I got one of them. This is the elevation control, and then I got these 6 to do for the azimuth. So that's my next thing to do. But while I was back here, since I don't really get behind the racks very often, and I turned it around, I want to show you the back of the rack. So this is what the inside of the rack looks like on the one on the right, and up top here you see the 3 Raspberry Pis. They are running hotspots. You see the one in the middle is not blinking. Something keeps locking it up. I'm not sure exactly what yet. So while I'm back here, I'll power cycle it. But you can see right now I got these small antennas on here on each of the hotspots. That's concerning me a little bit because it's, well, first of all, it's the wrong angle and low power. So what I did is I printed out a 3D printed thing like this, and all it does is it's going to mount right up here, just like this. There's a little lip on it that puts it right there on the edge, just like that, and it'll be mounted, and that to be the outside antennas, and I'll run these jumpers to the hotspots just for that. That's not in there yet. Since I got it turned around, I'll probably do it tonight, since I'm in the back of this. And then they have the 2 rotor controllers down here. Everything in here is 12 volts, except for the Raspberry Pis, which are 5 volts. Right now they're running off of a 110 volt power supply, but I do have a converter coming that will take 12 volts and do 6 5 volt at 5 amps output, which is more than enough to run the Raspberry Pis. So that's on its way. But I also wanted to show you the back of the rack. So these are all the things I showed you before that were 3D printed, and the monitors are on the front side of this rack for the 3 hotspots. And you can see how it fits in the back of the rack. It's nice and neat in the back of the rack like that with the Raspberry Pis. And these 2 things run off 110. There's not a 12 volt option for these. This burns off 12 volts. This is the control between the computer and the rotor controller. It comes in here. So the computer can control the rotor controller. The other rotor controller over here is just a regular rotor. This is an azimuth and elevation. This is just azimuth, and that's more for beams and stuff, which I don't even have a controller set up right now, so it's not like it's a big deal. And then over here on the right hand side, you see you have the power. This is the Anderson power pole breakout. Right now the only thing running off of that is this controller. The up top here I have the SWR meters have lights in them. I'll probably run the lights off of that. I have an adapter to do that plugs into one of those, and you can run 4 of these. So I've made one of those up, so I'll probably put that up there. But this is the back side of the rack. You don't get to see the back side of the racks very often, and since that was in here, I just figured I would go ahead and show you what I'm working on the back of the rack. And the front side, it's a little more obvious what it is, but it's kind of neat looking at the back side. And it's hard to keep things clean behind here. I'm trying my best by keeping the cables as clean as I can, but I don't want to cut them shorter because I don't really know how to make these kind of cables. And when you buy them, they don't come in like a 1-foot section. So just something to kind of think about. So I try to keep them as clean as possible. You don't see it from the front, but I like keeping things clean everywhere, even if you don't see it. The best that I can, at least. And it's hard when you get this many wires. So that's just something to kind of think about there. You want to do You want to be recorded?